So as I mentioned, my name is Mariah, and I was the AmeriCorps Vista member serving with Iowa Mentoring Partnership for the past year. My service term has ended, and I've stayed on with Volunteer Iowa as the Vista leader. So I'm doing another term of service, and I'm going to be quote-unquote managing and working with Vista members all across the state. So Mary and I worked a lot on this survey together and talking about how we're going to ask programs to participate in another data collection piece. So she and I have been working a lot on this together, and I will try to answer your questions the best that I can today. If I can't answer them, then I'll just have you email her. She is out of town right now, but she will be back on Wednesday of next week. So let's get started. And one quick announcement that on August 17th, which is next week on Thursday, the next collaborative mentoring webinar series will happen. That's provided by Mentor National, and it's going to be on logic models. So if you came to our spring trainings this year and attended the session on logic models and data and strategic planning, and you're kind of looking to enhance the logic model that you use for your organization, this might be a great webinar for you. And that's next week at 2, and you can register on the Mentor website. If you just Google Collaborative Mentoring Webinar Series, it'll be the first thing that pops up. All right. So we know that asking programs to do another survey is seems like a lot, because we know that the majority of you are already collecting a lot of data about the youth that you're serving, so that you can report that out to sponsors and funders and other community members to show how awesome your work is. But one of IMP's goals and purposes as a mentoring partnership is to be collecting statewide data. So we want to have a common statewide measure that shows what youth mentoring is doing all across Iowa. And just to have that common measure will allow us to report to legislators and donors and sponsors and other community advocates and statewide representatives to be able to show them the overall statewide benefits of the work that you're doing. And we've kept this really short. Like I said, we know that you're already collecting so much data and information and doing so much work. We really don't want to add a huge burden to you. So we've picked out a very short survey. It's 4 questions. And it is called the Hopeful Future Expectations. And we'll get to that in a minute. And just so you know, when you go through the survey with youth, or you have young people taking the survey, however you decide to do it, we're not going to be reporting that out specifically to your program, so no one else is going to see your results. We're just going to aggregate everybody's results to create an image and a story about youth mentoring in Iowa. So there's going to be a lot of privacy and confidentiality, so you don't have to worry about any of your results being advertised without your consent. So we got this survey from the National Mentoring Resource Center, which is an available free online helpful resource for youth mentoring that I'm sure you're all aware of. And it comes from the Measurement Guidance Toolkit for Mentoring Programs, which is just a collection of a plethora of surveys that programs can use to measure the impact of the mentoring that they're providing. And all of these surveys have been researched and analyzed over and over and over again. All that information is available online, but just know that where this survey is coming from is a place of research and study, and it's been proven to be an effective means of measuring hopeful future expectations. So this is what the survey looks like. It's only 4 questions that kids will be answering. So they will be asked, you know, what do you feel like your chances are for the following, and then they can rate how they feel about each of these 4 goals. And you can have kids take this survey on paper or online. But if you do choose to administer the survey to youth on paper, you will have to go collect those paper surveys and individually put all that information into the online survey to be submitted to IMP, so that we can have all of those answers and all of that data available to us online. So you can do the paper surveys, but just know that there is that little extra step in there where you're having to translate the data to the online survey. On the survey, in addition to these questions, we want to know a little bit about where the youth is coming from. So there are going to be some questions about what their gender is, how old they are, what grade they're in, and other demographic questions. And then there's going to be an option for each individual to put in what youth mentoring program they're a part of. So if you want to, when you're administering the survey, to provide a little instructional sheet that says, by the way, when you get to this question, put in that you're part of this youth mentoring program, just because some kids may not really think about that kind of stuff depending on how old they are. So putting that on the instructional sheet is just fine to tell them, make sure you put down that you're in this youth mentoring program. And then what we've decided that we're going to do is we're going to give each mentee an ID number. So the survey will be completed by an individual young person without an adult there, so that they can answer these questions really honestly. And you are going to give each of your mentees a number. So that could be a number 1 through 100, however you want to do it. Maybe you already have ID numbers for all the youth that you're serving, but they're just going to put that number in for slot number 11 right here. That way, when we're organizing all of this information and we're looking at it, we're going to see your program code. You see here the example, Dubuque YMCA Reach and Rise, their program code is going to be AA. So when we're looking at the results of the survey, we're going to see AA12 for you know, a young person who was the 12th mentee to answer the survey for the Dubuque YMCA Reach and Rise, if that makes any sense. That was kind of a lot. I'm going to go ahead and unmute everybody, and if you have any questions, I will do my absolute best to answer them. One moment. There we go. All right, everyone is unmuted unless you've muted your own self. Does anyone have any questions at this time? Okay, and one of the reasons that we're using a code for, or an ID number for each of the mentees is so that we can identify each youth survey and track them from the pre-survey to the post-survey, which I am about to get to. So the purpose of the survey obviously is to measure the impact of youth mentoring on a young person's hopeful future expectations. So it's not going to work unless we do one right before they start mentoring, and then a year later, after a year of being mentored, we want to see if there's been a difference. And we're going to do that survey post every year after their pre-survey. So we are going to be opening the online survey, I believe, on August 15th. Yeah, it's going to be open on August 15th, and the way that we want people to do this pre-survey is within the first 2 weeks that a young person has been matched with their mentor before they start actively mentoring, we would like for programs to walk them through this survey. Again, however you want to administer it, whether you want to sit them down at a computer and have them do it that way so that the answers go directly into the system, or give it to them on a piece of paper and then put their answers into the system later on. And this is only new matches, so not someone who's already mentoring or who was mentoring last year, none of the youth who have already been mentored, but just new matches. So within the first 2 weeks of their match, have them complete this survey, and that's starting after August 21st. So maybe that's when the survey opens. And it is better to have these youth complete the survey without a mentor or a parent present, because again, we want to make sure that they feel like they can answer these questions to the best of their ability and not feel pressured to answer one way or another. So that's why maybe sending them into the survey with a little instructional sheet could be helpful for some kids. And so we would like to get all these pre-match surveys in by October 31st. So whether you're collecting them by paper or having kids do them online, we need all of those answers submitted by October 31st. And apparently there was an email that went out a while ago about what the due date was for these pre-match surveys, and that's changed because it's now October 31st flat. And okay, here's the August 15th date. If you are going to be participating in the pre and post match survey with us, we need you to register to be a part of that by August 15th. And that link to register is provided in this PowerPoint, which I will be sending out to all the registrants right after this call. So for the post survey, that's going to happen after 9 months or a year of youth mentoring, depending on the type of youth mentoring that the kid is in. So if you are in a school-based program and you did your pre-match survey in August, then you're going to do your post-match survey in the spring, right before they leave for the summer. Or if the match closes early, you'll do a post survey at the time of closure if they meet the minimum commitment time. Okay, that's actually all that we have for you guys. You are still all unmuted. Does anyone have any questions at all? Feel free to take your time. We'll probably hang out for just a little bit in case anyone comes up with a question. Okay, Val, I see that you've raised your hand.
What is the minimum commitment time? I'm sorry, I missed that.
Yeah. So you can have a match, a young mentee take the post survey even if they didn't meet the minimum match requirement for your organization. So I think all of the youth mentoring programs have a minimum match requirement. Like if you're going to be a mentor, then you have to stick around for this long. So even if they don't meet that time, they're still encouraged to take the survey whenever that match closes.
Okay. Thank you.
Anybody else? Does everyone feel ready to administer the survey starting in August if you registered?
I think so.
Yeah? Anybody else? I know that it looks like Kaylin's on here, and I know that Diane is, it looks like one of her lines is muted. How are you guys feeling about this?
We're ready.
You ready?
Yeah, it's pretty. I think it's pretty minimal. I think we can do it.
Good, good. Well, I'm really glad to hear that. I'm really glad to hear that.
This is Kaylin. I was having some issues unmuting myself, but I do have a question.
Absolutely.
So we're community-based, so we're making new matches all the time.
Yeah.
So as far as the pre-match surveys, I mean, I'll enter all the ones I have by October 31st,
right.
And then what will I do after that with all my pre-match surveys?
If you would hold onto them and then submit them at the next pre-match survey registration window. Yeah, so we are going to want to get those answers in, but for the purposes of having some data to work with before we, as we're preparing for events like the Day at the Capitol, we need to have a cutoff date just so that we have a pool of data that we can work with before some of our big events. So yeah, we do want you to do the survey even if someone is matched in November or January or anything like that, and if you would just hold on to those answers and submit them at a later date.
So then we wouldn't be able to have the kids do the online version after the October 31st date?
That is correct. It might be good to print out and have just a copy of the paper version on hand that you can make more copies of.
Okay. And then, sorry, our weather radio just went off. Kind of the same thing with the post-match surveys, too. I mean, we'll be collecting them all the time.
Mm-hmm. Right. Yeah,
so
it's the same
thing. Again, it will just be okay, now you can enter your post.
Right. There will be a window for entering that information. Yeah.
Okay. And for those kids that we already have matched, you don't want us to just start collecting post-match data? It's only going forward with new matches that we make from here on out?
Yeah, only going forward with new matches, because if kids were to take the post-match survey now after being mentored for a couple of years, we wouldn't really have any pre-match data to compare that to, so it doesn't really help us in the long run. So yeah, just new matches.
So you're only going to look at their pre-match score, not like year to year. Like some of our matches, I mean, they'll stay for like 10 years.
Right. Right. Well, what we'd like to do ideally is have a pre-match survey that's kind of like a starting base for each mentee, and every year that they're mentored, or every 9 months, however your program does it, they'll do a post-match survey. And so we'll hopefully be able to see some progress as the years go on, depending on how long they're with the program. Does that make sense?
Yeah. Yep.
Okay. Anybody else?
I did have one other question. I know when I looked at it beforehand, the phrasing is last grade completed. Is that still the phrasing that's being used? So, like for our kids, when they are taking it, a new match is taking it in November and they're currently in 3rd grade, they're going to be selecting 2nd as the last grade they completed. Right? Because they're in 3rd grade, so.
Yeah, that is a good question. I would think so. I'm not really sure how that serves our purposes, but I'll run that by Mary and have her get back to you. But from what I understand, yeah, I think they would put 2nd grade, last grade completed. Okay. Thank you. That was a great question. Anybody else? Okay. Well, if that's it, then I will go ahead and close this out and send you all the PowerPoint, which has the link in it. I'll just go ahead and copy and paste that link into the email as well, so you don't have to sift through the PowerPoint to get to it. And yeah, thank you all for joining me on the call today. I really look forward to getting to work with some of that data. Actually, I don't know if I will be because I'm not the VIST anymore, but I'm sure Mary will let me in on some of that. Okay. Thanks, everybody.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thanks, Maria.
Bye.